Yeah, what up? Oh, it's recording. Cut that part out, dude.
Nah. Did you guys get the wines I told you to get?
Primitivo.
Primitivo.
There you go.
Words are tough. And then this Chianti.
Ooh.
You gotta do that thing.
Oh, nice. Chin chin. Ah. All right. Got another virtual cooking class, another Zoom quarantine cooking class. I got my friends Philip and CT and Laura here. Say hi, guys.
Take two, start over.
3 dishes today. We're gonna start with focaccia, then we're gonna do cavatelli in a tomato sauce, and then meatballs to finish up with. And we're gonna start with the focaccia. And focaccia is a bread from northern Italy. It's from Liguria, which is like this region in the way northwest of northern Italy. It's where like Genoa is where they have the famous pesto genovese, basil pesto. Focaccia is like a really oily bread. They put a lot of olive oil in it, but they have this specific type of olive. I think it's called like a Tajasca olive. And it creates this olive oil that's kind of light and fruity. So they pump it in all of their dishes, all their sauces. Because if you went down to like Puglia or Sicily and tried to do that with their olive oils, it's like way too strong. So it overpower the dishes and the sauces and everything. So their olive oil is nice and light, and they like to load it up. That's like one of the main ingredients in the basil pesto, their walnut sauce, everything. So this is like a really oily bread. And they'll do like a lot of different rises with it. But because we only have like 18 hours on this, we'll just do a couple of quick rises. That's why I told you to heat up your ovens. So the first thing we'll do is just get that focaccia dough ready, because it's gonna take a few of those rises.
It's self-rising flour, and it's best for biscuits.
You couldn't have gotten a worse flour. Laura did a good job. CT, you go ahead and pour 1 kilogram of bread flour into your mixing bowl.
Hey Google, how many cups is a kilo of bread flour?
7.87 and not a tenth more. All right, so just 8. All right, yeah, we're gonna use a dough hook for this. So the next part is like warmish water, because you're gonna dissolve the yeast in it. So now we're gonna get a little bowl, just a little bit of water, a little bit of yeast, and a little bit of sugar. So it's gonna be, we're gonna turn it into like a paste. 10 grams, I think, is about a pack. Yeah, CT, 1 pack.
For the whole thing?
Yeah.
Hey, wait, can we start over so I can do my intro again?
Yeah. We have to do a fast rise. That's why we're using so much yeast. When I make pizza dough and I do like a 12-hour rise, I use like maybe 1 gram, like just a tiny bit for a ton of dough. And the longer you let it rise, the less yeast you have to use.
Are you supposed to see a doctor after 4 hours?
Yes. But this focaccia, you can pretty much use this as a base for like a grandma-style pizza dough. Pour a little bit of the water into that yeast sugar mixture, and just sprudel it around. Sprudel it around. That's what my mom says.
So
nice.
On his toast, and he thinks it looks like peanut butter.
And some milk.
I didn't get any milk.
We have heavy cream, does that work?
I would mix the heavy cream with just a tiny bit of water. That'll be good enough. I screwed up. Did I not put that on the list?
No.
Yeah, it's about 100 milliliters. A little less.
Oh, we cracking out the olive oil? What are we doing?
7 tablespoons of olive oil.
This is gonna be so rich.
Yeah, it's a nice dense. Well, it's not that dense because, like I said, in Liguria when they make this, they do like these long rise times and they let it rise multiple times. So it's still fluffy, but it has a lot of fats in it. So it just gives it like a nice texture, nice flavor. It's a really good bread.
This is against health department code.
Should we do a shot of olive oil or something to keep going? Or?
Oh yeah. Is put the container of flour right onto the mixer. Whenever you make breads or pizza dough or any sort of dough, you always want to add the salt last, because if you add the salt with the yeast, it kills the yeast. We'll put the flour bowl onto the mixer with the dough hook, start the dough hook, then gradually add the yeast mixture, that paste, add all the oil and milk, then the water gradually, and then let it mix. And then we're gonna add the salt after a minute or two of mixing.
Straight from the chef's butt chin. See, you wouldn't get that. You wouldn't know to do that.
Whenever I use like a KitchenAid with a dough hook or anything, I add the water in or liquid ingredients in gradually, because what happens is if you add it all at once, it'll form like this kind of liquidy mass, and all the flour will get stuck on the outside and it'll never mix in. But if you add it gradually, it'll all form into a nice ball nice and quickly. It doesn't really matter, but it just makes it a lot easier.
Good, we like the struggle.
And then, sir, how much salt do we add?
1 tablespoon.
We lose that dough flying across the kitchen.
So that's what you want. Nice.
What about this?
Alright, don't hurt our dough.
Get a wet paper towel and just cover the top and throw it in your warmed oven.
Don't you know it's a quarantine? Paper towels.
I would moisten the paper towel, cover the top like that. So now what we're gonna do is we're doing Cavatelli pasta. We're going all the way from the northwest area of Italy, in Liguria, where that Focaccia is from. Now we're going all the way down southeast to Puglia, which is like the furthest region down on the eastern side of Italy. And that's where Cavatelli started, but it's big all over southern Italy. And it's a really easy pasta. You pretty much take a gnocchi board. All you need is water, flour, and a fork to make this. That's why it's a good quarantine pasta. It's just big all around southern Italy. My family's from Basilicata, which is right next to Puglia, in between Puglia and like Calabria. All those regions, Cavatelli's huge there. It's one of the most famous pastas in all of southern Italy. And like I said, it's just water and flour, and then you take little bits, little chunks, and use your thumb to push it down a gnocchi board or a fork, and that creates this little noodle shape. It's almost like a homemade penne, people refer to it, but it's got a much, much different texture than that. And it's really good in just a simple tomato sauce or a cheesy tomato sauce. Semolina flour. What we want is probably 300 grams. No, it was a little more. Yeah, I think that's fine. Just a little over 1.5 cups, I would say.
All right, cool. We're making it work. We're grooving. We're zigging. We're zapping.
You guys want 300 of D's.
Make sure you keep your food at 41 and below.
Nobody listen to her. All right. So I got 150 milliliters of very warm water, and you just slowly pour it into your semolina and just mix it with your fingers. And all we're going to do is just form a nice dough with that semolina and the water. Is do that technique that Philip's doing. You're going to knead it into like a rope, then vertical, and push it, and hold this bottom as you push it, and then pull it back in, push it, pull it back in, and then once you get it to where it's not breaking that easily, then you know it's pretty strong. You got your gluten nice and formed. Yeah, there you go. Good job. That's what you want to do, Laura. It's hard. It's going to be hard to add the water. It's always hard to add water to a dry ball, but just keep working it, and you'll get to that point that you want. And what you want to do, this is what you're testing. You're testing like the strength toward the bottom as you need it. And once you get to a point where it's not breaking that easily, then you know you have a good strong dough. Oh yeah, CT. As Laura kneads the dough, CT, go ahead and puree the tomatoes.
I don't know what that means.
Here, I got it.
What you're gonna do is just cover it with a plastic wrap so it doesn't dry out. And we're just gonna let it rest. So the two things that build gluten are working it and resting it. It sounds weird, but when you work dough, that's what stretches out the gluten, and then when you rest it, it gives it time to build up and grow stronger as well. So,
muscles.
Like muscles.
Your rest day.
yeah, there you go. Exactly, exactly.
Big strong dough.
Oh, God.
So go ahead and take it out of there again and put it back in the oven with the wet paper towel back on it. So now we're gonna split up duties.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, teamwork.
I think
So-
I think we need another bottle of wine for this.
Yeah.
I think so too. Like,
So the guys are gonna chop and work on the sauce and the meatballs. The girls are gonna work on the pasta. So guys, start chopping the garlic. Girls, do you have a gnocchi board or a fork?
Give a fork.
Yeah, get a fork. All right, so Laura's, flour on your work surface. Just sprinkle a little on the work surface.
Be careful. Cut yourself.
Good, good.
So you want to take a piece about that size. So you're gonna roll it down the fork with your thumb.
Farting all night.
like that?
Yeah, that looks good. Start above the actual fork part. It's a little big, Laura. I would go a little smaller, maybe.
That's what she said.
Yeah, yeah.
Look at that. Look at that.
Oh, yours look phenomenal.
Phenom.
Even say though.
I don't either. What am I missing? Are you missing something? Or am I missing something?
So halfway through, you just like.
Can you do that one more time, Strength? I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Drink more, Sorenza.
thanks for to check that out.
Perfect, Philip. Good job.
Whoa! Mine's bigger than his. Alright, so I'm putting this into.
So, little olive oil and garlic in the pan, yeah.
How much olive oil?
A few tablespoons.
Shut, turn around.
Yeah, babe. Work it.
I would add a little more olive oil.
A little more, of course. Of course.
Yep. Olive oil, garlic, and some red pepper flakes.
Lorenza, I will say I like this class a lot better than the Sir the Top class.
You gotta cut that part out.
Yeah.
I am not cutting that part out. And like I said, just a simple tomato sauce is all like it's something as simple as a little bit of garlic, some red pepper flakes, and the tomatoes.
For those tuning in, it is a family affair. We got the dog.
Rocky!
Did you give the girls a shot because we're like cool? We're smarter.
So part of cooking is listening and smelling. So as soon as you start to hear that garlic start to sizzle just a little bit, and then you can start to smell it, that's when you know it's starting to like lose its liquid, and that's what you want. It's just releasing the flavor into that olive oil.
Laura was just like, I missed that.
I know, I missed that. And, oh, as I was going my mind, I was like,
I could just mute people, actually. Okay. You're releasing the garlic and the red pepper flakes. You're releasing that flavor into the oil. And once that oil gets nice and hot, what you're gonna do is add like 1 or 2 tablespoons of that tomato puree. And by adding a small amount, it immediately cooks out the liquid and gets really, really hot in that oil, and it starts to caramelize. And it becomes like a nice, sweet kind of tomato flavor. And then after you do that, that's when you add the rest of the tomato puree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, meeting's good.
me either.
I've never heard of semolina before.
This is exciting. Yeah, Sorenza, what's semolina?
So this is the big difference between northern and southern Italian pastas. Is in the north they have a soft wheat flour, and that's why they'll make like an egg-based dough, like 1 egg to 100 grams of flour, make an egg-based pasta dough out of that. Because it's a softer wheat, it has less gluten, so you need the eggs, the protein from the eggs, to help bind the dough together. In the south, they have durum wheat, like this semolina is a durum wheat, and it's a lot stronger, it's got a lot more gluten in it, so you don't need the more protein from eggs. All you need is that semolina flour and water, and that's enough to make a nice strong dough if you need it enough.
How's this looking, sir? How's this looking?
Perfect, there you go. Add a can.
A can is half
And what I'm gonna do is I take my bowl of leftover tomato remnants and I put a little bit of red wine in it just to get the rest out. And then just add that wine, just to help clean out that bowl, and add the wine into the sauce. When you add wine to the sauce that you're making, especially when you're making a tomato sauce, you're adding like the sugars from that wine and the flavor, but also it helps pair the wine with that dish then. Because
Favorite wine to add with it?
okay, so like I was saying earlier, like I told you to try and find Aglianico. That's like a southern Italian wine. Southern Italian wines are usually cheaper. They have almost like a sour flavor to them. And that's why Aglianico pairs really well with tomato sauce. Tomatoes are naturally sour food almost.
So what's a Sangiovese?
Sangiovese is a Tuscan blend, but that's...
We need more south than that.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Sangiovese is probably a little closer on the like sour spectrum, I guess, to an Aglianico than a Chianti, but it doesn't matter. When I pair wines with food, a lot of people like try and like pair different flavor notes. I don't even try and do that. I pair regions. So like a nice like Vermentino from Liguria with a basil pesto, or a fish dish from that region. Aglianico is a southern Italian wine. That pairs well with like a tomato sauce in the South. Tomato sauce big all over the South. Chianti is big with a nice bistecca fiorentina, Florentine steak.
Lorenzo, you know we were supposed to be in Italy today.
Yeah, me too. I was supposed to be there late May, yeah.
Hey, guys, let's plan our trip together, because we're also going to Italy.
Open up another one. Bottle 2.
There you go.
Yay.
Yeah, actually, I have a Cavatelli maker.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, that's not handmade, and not your mama's pasta is all handmade.
Not all of it, but okay.
We gonna cut that part.
Take your take a pound of ground beef.
Bill, it's about a pound.
I need to change my shirt.
There's flour on my tip.
Laura, this is
All right, Philip and CT, take the ground beef, put it in a bowl. Now sprinkle salt onto it, and put some of the breadcrumbs in the frying pan. 3 handfuls. 3 handfuls.
Thanks, Italian grandmother.
And Philip and CT, as your breadcrumbs are now on the heat, on the fire, just keep mixing them until they start to turn brown. You want them to turn brown, but you do not want to burn them. But I like to toast the breadcrumbs because it gives the meatballs a nice toasty flavor. Did you guys get gabagool?
Gabagool.
Gabagool.
Commercial break. Commercial break. Not your mama's pasta. Commercial break. You.com?
Yeah, notyourmamaspasta.com. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there we go.
There you go. Product placement, baby.
Add an egg and a splash of milk.
1 pound?
That's good, yeah.
He's got the Rona.
I will say, TT and Laura's Cavatelli is really good.
If you're in a doghouse, you have to rethink your
When I make meatballs, I don't add a bunch of spices, herbs, cheese. I like to keep it nice and simple. And the breadcrumbs is really just to loosen it up and make it a lot softer. Because all you really want is that ground beef, some extra fat from the milk and protein from the egg to help bind it together. And then those breadcrumbs really helps to soften them up. And once you toast the breadcrumbs, that gives it a nice toasty flavor. It just really makes a good meatball. Toss the meatballs right into the sauce.
Oh, nice. Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, all right. Ours are a little bigger, not that.
Start chopping 2 onions. You split it, and then you chop them in half, and then you just slice them up.
Okay, just slice them. Got it.
Yeah, we're not chopping them small or thin because we want nice big slices on top of our focaccia.
They're not thin, so they're thin.
So once you get the onions sliced, we're gonna put it in that pan. All those slices, we're gonna put it in that pan, like the small pan where the breadcrumbs were. Put it on a medium to high heat with a bunch of olive oil, and we're just gonna cook them down, add some salt, and just caramelize them a little bit. Once you get the onions in your pan, sprinkle a bunch of salt onto them to let them because you're gonna break them down. You want them to really cook down quickly, and a bunch of olive oil. So salt, onions, and olive oil in the pan, just let them cook down.
Look at this dope dough.
There you go.
Oh.
How about this dough, baby?
Oh, snap.
No. Here, bro. Real good.
Rocky, what do you do? Rocky, you want a treat? You want a treat, Rocky?
Now I have a good one. Alright, ready everyone? Alright, Rocky, sit. Good boy, paw. Good boy, other paw. Good boy, down. Okay.
Take your pan and put a lot of olive oil on the bottom.
Is this enough?
Yeah, that's good. Take your bread dough carefully, and you carefully scoop it right onto your baking tray.
Oh, yeah.
When you knead it after it's risen, it destroys all those nice air bubbles, and you really don't want to knead it after it's risen. You just carefully just stretch it out, and I'll just let gravity do the work. It's gonna bounce back a little bit after you stretch it. That's okay. We're just gonna let it rest a little bit, and then it's gonna relax, and then we're gonna stretch it out again. And after the second time, you should be able to get it all the way to the edges and get a nice uniform rectangle. Go ahead and put those onions in a bowl.
Another commercial. Not your mama's pasta. Hey,
Hey, the video about turning your mind. The not from Mama's pasta. We don't talk about it.
So wait, how do you want us to stretch it? Like
Just like this.
press it out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get a glass, about 1/8 of a cup of olive oil and 1/8 a cup of water. Maybe a 1/4 cup of each.
Babe, do a shot of that.
This is an olive oil heavy class.
I'm shocked.
Now take your fingers and just dot it. Take your oil water mix and now pour it all over that dough.
Oh, yes. Oh, olive oil.
For doing the water with it.
You don't want the top to dry out and burn. This keeps it nice and moist. The water will also evaporate and create a nice steam environment in your oven. And then sprudel it around.
Oh.
Can you stop using
I
that word?
massaged it.
Sprudel it around in your pan. Sprinkle the salt over.
Brandon, should we oversalt or undersalt?
That might be the worst question I've ever been asked. Now we're gonna stick it in that oven, set the timer for 10 minutes, and then the last 5 minutes, put the cooked onions over half the focaccia. So we'll have half onion topped and half plain.
5 minutes in addition to the 10? Or
Yeah, so it's gonna be in the oven for 15 minutes total. After 10 minutes, we'll take it out. So set the timer for 10 minutes and stick it in.
All right, so guys, executive decision here. Finish your drink.
Take a couple of scoops of that sauce and put it in the small pan. About this much sauce.
You see that?
Oh, babe, look. You put too much.
This is gonna be the sauce to coat the pasta. Not your mama's limoncello.
Alright, this shot break brought to you by Not Your Mama's Pasta.
Hey,
That's a great question. You
that
have
was
there,
really
Phil.
good. That was good marketing.
My brother made this logo. Cheers.
Chin chin.
I will say the simplicity of the meatballs.
When you make meatballs, you gotta take it easy. Take it easy.
Hey, take it easy.
Take it easy. Drop the pasta into that boiling water. Let it cook for like maybe 2 minutes in the boiling water, and then immediately put it in the pan with the tomato sauce and just coat it in that tomato sauce. They should rise to the surface when they're boiling. Take your onions and you spread them out onto half that focaccia. You just drop it into the sauce. If there's not enough sauce, you can add more from the meatballs. And then just mix it like this and just coat it.
What if you can't do that cool technique?
Yeah, dude, there's no way.
If you can't do this, then you're not eating tonight.
So we're coating it up.
Whoa. Boy, over here putting it in the meatball
and now it's off the heat. Now you add the Parmesan cheese. And now you get a nice cheesy tomato sauce.
Oh, yeah, babe.
Okay.
Oh, that's hot.
Don't do that.
Get out.
Oh my gosh, your Cavatelli looks so much different than ours.
All right, Serenza, we're about to own you real quick. All right, so the Padawans are about to become the masters.
Woo!
Gets there. Mm-hmm. Oh, look at that. Oh.
Oh! Oh!
What about?
There you go. Not your mama's focaccia.
Serenza, check out this piccata.
Whatever, dude.
Best believe that.
Now it's ready. Now you serve.
H-O-K-I-E-S, Hokies!
Hey, after we eat, we should keep the Zoom on and watch like Goodfellas or The Godfather. Rocky's waiting for some roast focaccia to fall.
There we go.
Yeah, that was good.
Guys, look at my plate.
Oh my gosh, this focaccia. I'm so pumped. Yes.
Remembering that your pasta, the same dish you made, was better than any dish we had in Italy, and we went from, where we go? All the way up north, all the way to...
North Jersey to South Jersey, baby.
Bring that logo out, baby. Get the logo. Better than Italy.
Italy.
Serenza, can I tell you my favorite part about our whole dish?
What?
No veggies.
Thank you, Serenza.
Thanks, dude.
Yes, this is awesome. Alright, one more. Hold on.
3, 2, 1.
Yay, we did it. That's nice. That's nice. Is this Anthony? Yeah. We have a surprise. We have a surprise visitor.
We have a surprise guest? Yeah, I let him in.
Is it?
We have a surprise guest?
What's up, dude? Anthony.
What's up, y'all? In the background, that's me, dude.
That's you?
Yeah, get a good look at it.
Well, yo, this focaccia, or I still don't know how to say it, but it is so good.
You guys want to see my home gym? Hey, look, there it is. That's all I had. This is my
Yo, Serenza, these meatballs, so good.
Yeah.
That was Not Your Mama's Pasta, quarantine cooking class, focaccia, Not Your Mama's focaccia, Cavatelli, more red wine, and what else do we make? Meatballs. Yeah, meatball.
Oh.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It was delicious.
Hey, everybody, take it easy. Take it easy.